I'd like to call this January 5th, 2023 Board of Education meeting to order. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Cobain?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Ms. Stochek?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We always remind ourselves of our district goals. Our 3 district goals are academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And as a board, we measure all our decisions against those goals. We have a long meeting, so we're going to continue. First agenda item is election and oath of office for board president. So I'd like to open the nominations for board president, and I would like to nominate Mrs. Laura Hausum for board president. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, that closes our nominations. Mr. Anagnostou, would you take the roll?
Yes. Yeah, give me 1 second. Just typing it in. Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Congratulations to Mrs. Hausum on her election to president.
And
Are
Mrs.
you
Hausum?
ready, Mr. Anagnostou?
Yes, give me 1 second. All right, Mrs. Hausum, congratulations. You want to meet me at the podium for the oath of office? So raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as President of the Strongsville Board of Education to the best of your ability in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office until your successor is chosen and qualified? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just like to thank my fellow board members for having the faith in me to continue to lead us forward this coming year, and a special thanks to Rich for the 3 years of guidance that you've given. I have some big shoes to fill, but I know you're not going anywhere, and I will be relying heavily on you. So look forward to working with administration and all the district employees this coming year. I know it's going to be a fantastic one, so thank you. And with that, we'll move on to item B, election and oath of office of our, I'm sorry, see, I've already.
You're right.
Item C. The board, all right, I'm sorry. We are going to do our election of our board vice president at this time. So I'm going to open up the floor. Do we have nominations for a board vice president?
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes,
I would like to nominate Mrs. Michelle Bissell.
thank you. All right, we have Mrs. Bissell. Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. George, could you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
And the motion carries.
Great. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Congratulations, Michelle.
Congratulations. You want to meet me at the podium? So do you solemnly affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during your continuance in said office and until your successor is chosen and qualified? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'd like to echo Laura's sentiments. Thank you to my fellow board members, the administration, and we have a lot of work to do, so let's get to it.
Sounds good. All right, next up on our agenda is public comment. I see no slips, and no one is racing for the podium, so I think we're good there. At this point, I know this is where we usually say if anyone needs to get up and leave, you are more than welcome to. I think there's some birthday celebrating to do, so. All right. Next on the agenda is the appointment of liaisons to committees for one-year terms. Everyone received the agenda earlier this week, and all of the committees were assigned. Does anyone have any questions or issues with the assignments? All right. So with that then, do we have a motion to accept the appointments of liaisons to committees?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Sharon. George?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is the appointment of liaisons to committees for a one-year term. This is the appointment of our liaison to Polaris Career Center for a 3-year term, and we have Mrs. Michelle Bissell. And we need a motion for that. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Motion by Rich, second by Haley.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Cobain?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Thank you, Michelle, for your service to Polaris. Thank you. And I know you're also taking on a role of a president, vice president this coming year.
Our meeting is Tuesday.
Okay, so we will,
Officially done,
all right,
but I was last year vice president.
perfect. Thank you. Next is letter F, board committee appointments for a one-year term. Again, we have seen these. The Finance Committee would be Michelle Bissell and Sharon Kilbane. Policy Committee, Michelle Bissell and Haley Stavchek. Facility Committee, Richard Miko and myself. Business Advisory Council Committee would be Sharon Kilbane and Haley Stavchek. Is everyone okay with these? Again, we've seen these. Are there any issues or questions? If not, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Haley. George?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Motion carries. Letter G. This is the establishment of 2023 Board of Education meeting dates. We are setting the date, time, and location of Board of Education meetings for the calendar year of 2023. Those are listed as on the whiteboard. That is a consent item. Letter H is Robert's Rules, saying that we will adopt the Robert's Rules of Order and will be used in absence of board policy. Letter I, establishment of service fund for fiscal year 2024. According to section 3315.15 ORC, the treasurer of the Board of Education has certified that the number of pupils enrolled in the Strongsville City School District is 5,649 as of December 1st, 2022. By law, a sum not to exceed $2 for each child so enrolled, or $20,000, whichever is greater, may be set aside from the general fund to be known as the service fund, to be used only in paying the expenses of the members of the Board of Education actually incurred in the performance of their duties or of their official representatives when sent out of the school district for the purpose of promoting the welfare of the schools under their charge, or in paying the expenses of members to be of such boards actually incurred in training and orientation to the performance of their duties from the date of election or appointment to the date of administration of the oath of office. Such payments shall be made only in such amount as may be approved by the board on the date of administration of the oath of office. Such payments shall be made only in such amount as may be approved by the board on statement of the several members or members to be furnished at the next succeeding regular meeting of such board. No board shall appropriate or expend a sum greater than $60,000 in any one school year from such service fund. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that a service fund be established by the Board of Education in the amount of $20,000. Next, letter J. Recommendation by superintendent authorizing treasurer to reinvest available funds for the 2023 in accordance with board policy and established administrative procedures. Results of such investments will be reported in monthly financial reports throughout the year to pay bills within the adopted appropriations in 2023. Letter K, legal counsel appointments. Be it resolved that the superintendent of schools and his designees be authorized to contract legal counsel as necessary for the successful performance of their duties. Legal counsel is designated to be Squire Patton Boggs, LLP, Pepple and Wagner, LTD, Riley Law Firm, LLC, Walter and Haberfield, LLP, Brinza, McIntyre and Seed, LLP, Peter, Khalil, and Markakis Company, LPA, and Weston Hurd, LLP. And I'm going to ask Rich's expertise here. Why do we keep on retainer all of these law firms?
So we keep them available because each law firm has individual expertise or has individual attorneys that have history and expertise. So it is in our best interest to hire the best for whatever the case may be, whether it be negotiations, whether it be labor law, whether it be student services. And so it's important that the public knows who we're hiring, but it's also important that we have multiple tools in our toolbox where appropriate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
No,
And the
thank
other
you.
thing I will add is they're paid based on the hours that we use them. They're not paid by an annual amount. It's billable hours.
Thank you. Next on the agenda.
Mrs. Hausen, this is
Yes.
a action item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yep.
So, sorry, this is an action item, so we need to make a motion. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Sharon.
Okay, I'm going to, Sharon for the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, Sharon for the motion, Haley for the second. George, can you take the roll?
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
Ms. Stovic,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
and Mrs. Hausen.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now, letter L, Board of Education meeting minutes. Provided that the Board of Education members receive the minutes of previous meetings at least 5 or more days in advance of a meeting, authorization is given for the board to waive reading of the minutes at that meeting. Letter M, resolution requesting notification. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the resolution requesting that the Board of Education be notified by the tax commissioner of any application for exemption from taxation for any property located within the district. The resolution is pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5715.27. Next on the agenda, letter N, tax budget for fiscal year 2024. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the tax budget for fiscal year 2024 be adopted. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to George because I know he has some slides for us.
Thank you, Mrs. Hausen. Just want to, this is an annual item that needs to be adopted by the Board of Education at the organizational meeting submitted to the county by January 15th of each year. And I do have the same slides I do every year to kind of go over what the tax budget is. Essentially, it starts the budget process for the upcoming school year. And then it also allows the county to begin the authorization process of looking at the tax rates and beginning that process for calendar year 2024 as those are a year in advance. So the tax budget is made up of 5 schedules. The first schedule is Division of Taxes Levied. The next one is statement of fund activity for the upcoming fiscal year, where it allows them to issue us an amended certificate of resources and appropriation to begin the next school year prior to the school year beginning. Any unvoted general fund debt obligation, any voted debt obligation where they're looking at how much debt do we have if that tax rate needs to be adjusted, and any tax anticipation notes, which we do not have any. So looking at the division of taxes levied, these are all the taxes that, or all the levy issues that we have on our tax duplicate. It's broken up in sections. You have the general fund. We have the 2 renewal levies. The first renewal levy, which was recently passed. The collections begin this calendar year in 2023 and will go and continue to 2027. And then the 2019 levy, which the collection year began in 2020 and the collection year ends in 2024. Then the total maximum rate authorized is 83.68 mils, but based on House Bill 920, where we can only collect how much was passed, that millage rate adjusts based on if valuations increase. So since these levies have been adopted, the valuations in the city of Strongsville have increased, so that effective millage rate for residential and commercial property is a lot less than that millage rate that was passed. For example, the total maximum rate authorized is 83.68 mils. For commercial property, our effective rate is 35.62 mils, and for commercial property, it's 44.71 mils. What doesn't adjust is the inside millage, and then that's 5.6. So if valuations increase, we get a slight increase in revenues based on that. If values decrease, we'll see a reduction. And same thing for the other levies. If valuations decrease, then those effective rates will increase, but they can only increase up to the amount that was passed. So if, I don't see this happening in Strongsville, but in a scenario where valuations decrease significantly to where the effective rate needs to be higher than the rate that was passed, it can only go to the rate that was passed, and essentially you would lose funding. So it does go both ways in that scenario. PI, permanent improvement, we do have a 1 mil levy that was established in 2005. And then the effective rate for that is 0.65, and the effective rate for commercial is 0.71. And then the bond retirement fund, this is what gets adjusted with the tax budget. And then once we submit the tax budget, the county will issue a tax rate resolution based on our tax budget last year, with a combination of our refunding and values going up in the city. Last year, the maximum rate authorized was 2.3 mils. Now it's 2 mils, so a reduction of 0.3 mils. And with that reduction, it's of the 0.3 mils, it's a direct savings to taxpayers of $10.50 per $100,000 in off your tax bill. So this was, if you recall from last March, this was on the tax rate resolution, kind of stated at that point. So overall, these are levies that are out there, and that's being billed to the taxpayers. And just to point out too, between the savings of the bond retirement fund that we were able to do refundings and refinancing, and a combination of increased valuations, I believe when that levy was first passed, it was at 3 mils. Now it's down to 2 mils. Any questions on that before I move on? The second schedule is the statement of fund activity. This is essentially the amended certificate and appropriations predicted for the upcoming school year. There's too many to list out in the presentation. They're listed in the exhibit if you want to see them. For the general fund, it's based off the 5-year forecast, and for the other funds, it's based on current historical data, just kind of trying to predict out. These get adjusted closer when we get to the start of the next fiscal year, where we'll issue a temporary appropriation which will replace this. Statement Schedule 3 is our unvoted debt. We have 3 issues. 2 are within the general fund. It's the preschool facility improvement and school bus acquisition that the debt was issued in 2005, and the final maturity is 2035. The original amount is 1.6 million. We currently have an outstanding balance of 725,000. The next one is a House Bill 264 energy conservation notes. That was issued in 2008 for 3.6 million. The final maturity, one more principal payment, which will be this upcoming December, a year from now, of $330,014. So once that's paid, that debt will be eliminated at the end of this calendar year. And then we have the Muraski land lease that was used to build the back end of Muraski in 2005. The original amount was 4.5 million, and the outstanding balance as of January 1st is 2.6 million. And then the final maturity date for that is December 1st, 2034. We do have an option next year where it's callable, and we can make a decision whether to refinance it or just to pay it off, depending on our situation. And with that, one of the factors that we'll look at is because it's a land lease, so our creditor, we can't make any modifications to the property without getting approved, but if we make the decision to pay it off in full, it releases us from the land lease. Any questions? Our voted debt, we have one.
George, are we going to have a mortgage burning party in
Good.
December?
Could have a bonfire. We do have one voted debt, and it was the middle school and the high school and elementary renovations in 2013. The original issue amount is 81,000. The outstanding principal was 58.4 million. The annual principal and interest payment for this calendar year is 3.4 million, and the final maturity date is December 1st, 2045. So still got a ways for that one. And then the last schedule is tax anticipation notes, and the district doesn't have any. And what these are, just to give you clarity, although we don't have them, what these are is they're kind of short-term issues where we receive our tax collections. The majority comes in December, and then again they come in August, and then again in January and February. That's where you see the big influx in cash, and you have to have that cash last. But sometimes when you come December, that's your lowest points in cash, and sometimes district won't have enough cash to cover expenses, and they'll issue these short-term notes to get the cash now and then pay it back when they get the tax revenue the following month. We used to be in that position back over 10 years ago. Currently, we're not, so glad this is none. And with that, that concludes the tax budget, if there's any questions.
Any questions for George? All right. Thank you, George.
Yep.
I almost stopped to try to figure out how old I was going to be in 2045, and then I stopped. I'm like, no, I'm not even going to try. All right, and that takes us to item O on the agenda, investments. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the board authorizes the treasurer to invest up to a maximum of 40% of the district's interim funds in the commercial paper notes in accordance with board policy 6144-investments. Item P, district credit card limits. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that per board policy 6423, the annual credit card limits per cardholder and/or account be approved as listed in the exhibit. Letter Q, travel payment and reimbursement. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that payment and reimbursement rates per diem meals, lodging, and mileage be approved as listed in the exhibit. Mileage rates shall not exceed the federal IRS prescribed mileage rate. Next, letter R, OSBA annual membership dues and subscriptions. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the Board of Education renews its membership with the Ohio School Boards Association, including e-publications, effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Item S, OSBA Legal Assistance Fund. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the board enters into a contract with OSBA for the Legal Assistance Fund consultant services for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Cost for this service is $250. Letter T, OSBA Virtual Transportation Supervisor. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the board enters into a contract with OSBA for the VTS subscription for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. Cost for this service is $250. Letter U, House Bill 9, Ohio Public Records Training Certification. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that to be in compliance with all Ohio public record statutes and the Board of Education requirement that the treasurer, George K. Anagnostou, be the designee on behalf of the Board of Education for public records training. And thank you, George, for doing that.
Oh. I believe I signed up for February.
You signed up for
Yes.
February. I did sign up for the January session.
Oh, did you?
So, yes,
Oh, it'll be good.
yes. All right.
You can join too, Cameron.
Good job.
I trust you implicitly, George.
All right, agenda item V, broadcast of board meetings. In accordance with Board Policy 0169.3, the board authorizes the public broadcast of regular board meetings during the calendar year. Letter item W, resolution for group health, vision, and dental insurance for board members. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that board members may participate at their own expense in group health, vision, and dental insurance plans provided to employees of the district. Letter X, hiring authority. Be it resolved that the Strongsville Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to employ personnel on a temporary basis between board meetings. That's not on the consent, I'm sorry. Oh, and that requires a separate vote. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Haley. George?
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. Motion carries. And that brings us to letter Y, the consent calendar. Motion to adopt the consent calendar for the organizational portion of the meeting. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of consent calendar at this point of the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as type-action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Do I have anyone that wants, are we all in agreement? All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Sharon, second by Haley. George?
Mrs. Cobain?
Yes.
Ms. Stochek?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes. All right. So that concludes the organizational part of our meeting. So now we will go into our work session. And that takes us to letter Z, the treasurer's report. George?
Well, Happy New Year. I don't have anything for this meeting, so that concludes my report. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had a good New Year, a good holiday. And then have a financial report for the next meeting in January. Or the January 26th meeting.
All right.
This has easily been the best treasurer's report we've had all year.
I can make the next one better, too.
George is offended.
All right. Next on the agenda, superintendent's report.
Hold your excitement, Rich, because I don't have anything either this month specifically for me. Just to say congratulations, Laura and Michelle. Excited to work with you both continuing and in your new roles. In terms of specific items for this month, I don't have anything under my report. However, we do have a few department reports to go through. So under business services, We do have one item in terms of gifts. Be it resolved upon my recommendation that we accept the gift from the Strongsville Basketball League, who donated girls' basketball shooting shirts valued at $1,070 to the Strongsville High School girls' basketball program, as well as Diane Jaba, who donated $250 to the Strongsville High School Drama Club. So we thank both of those people for their generous donations and gifts to the school district. Any questions on those donations? Next, under curriculum, we do have a revision, or no, I'm sorry, that's the second one. We do have an overnight trip for the high school wrestling team. Be it upon my recommendation that permission be granted to the high school wrestling team to travel to Perrysburg, Ohio, to participate in the Perrysburg Invitational Tournament January 6th to 7th, so this upcoming weekend. Transportation will be via school bus, and expenses will be paid by the Mustang Wrestling Club and the athletic boosters. Next is where we have a revision to the high school girls basketball team overnight trip. The revision is from the agenda in November. We changed the date. So the beginning, because the game schedules changed after the last board approval, the beginning date of the trip was changed from December 28th to December 27th. Any questions on those trips? Nothing under student services for this month, and I'll turn it over to Jenny for the human resource report.
Keep
Oh, you want
going
me to-
there. No, I can do it. It's okay. I just have one resignation of a non-certificated staff member.
And so there are no items for technology for tonight, and so that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Cameron? All right, hearing none. Item GG, the consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of consent calendar at this point of the agenda means that all items appearing in this agenda denoted as type-action consent, which items constitute the consent calendar, are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or the superintendent requests that such items be removed from the consent calendar and voted upon separately. Do we have anything that needs removed? All right, hearing none. Do I have a motion?
So-
Second?
Second.
Motion by Haley, second by Sharon.
I actually only said so.
George?
Put that down.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Ms. Cobain,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is our board bylaws and policies. We have the second reading of our policies. Do we have any questions on that? All right. Third and final reading will be, Rich, I'm going to rely on you again, I'm sorry.
No, next board meeting, which is the fourth Thursday of the month, January something or another.
I think it's the 26th.
Thank you. Yep, January 26th. Thank you. Second reading, first reading waived. Revised policy 2280, our preschool program. So that will again be on our next agenda. Item II, Board of Education other. Does anyone have anything for other? It's gonna be the fastest meeting ever. Hearing none. Meeting notification. The next regular Board of Education meeting is scheduled to be held January 26th at 7 p.m. in the meeting room of the Administration Building, 18199 Cook Avenue, Strongsville, Ohio. Item KK, executive session. There is no need for executive session tonight. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Happy New Year, everyone.
Wait, hold on, we gotta take a vote.
Motion, I'm sorry. Look, I got all excited. Look on my screen.
You made it.
Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
You're here for 45 more terms.
I need a motion.
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
Motion by Sharon, second by Haley. George?
Mrs. Cobain,
Yes.
Ms. Stochek,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Hausum.
Yes.
And the
And-
meeting is, okay.
Oh, motion passes, and now am I allowed to?
Yeah, state the time.
What's that?
State the time.
The time is 7:35 PM for the record. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.